Welcome to Tactical Truths, the playlist where we bring you the latest military news, tactical analysis, and stories that matter most to our community. Hit subscribe and join us for sharp insights and frontline perspectives. I'm Phil Campion, former UK SAS, and this is the Tactical Truth. Welcome to the Tactical Truths, and this week we're going to be looking at a young man who went out to fight in Russia for Ukraine. It hasn't all gone his way because he's been captured. Let's have a look at exactly what has happened.
The British Foreign Office is investigating reports that a former soldier fighting for Ukraine has been captured by Russian forces in the Kursk region. A video is...
Okay, the Kursk region then is actually southern Russia. So he would have probably been on that incursion from the Ukrainians when they pushed into Russia itself. So obviously there as to bolster forces in that region.
Circulating online, which shows a man dressed in military uniform. Our correspondent Simon Jones reports.
In that video, he identifies himself as James Scott Rees-Anderson. He says he's 22 years old, and he says that he was...
There he goes. James Scott Rees-Anderson is what he's been identified as. And there's a picture of him. Undisclosed location, no sign as to exactly where he is, who's got him. And at no point do you see any Russian insignia, people, props, or anything in any of the filming that I've seen. So they're not giving anything away easily.
Part of the British Army for 4 years before being sacked. He then applied to join the International League.
He's quite candid with what he says about his time in the British Army. He actually admits to being sacked. And we'll see some footage of that later of how he described himself, obviously to a camera which is now debriefing him. But he describes himself as sacked after 4 years in the British Army. It also goes on to say that his father was in prison when he came out. And I think that's had an impact. Losing his job, for whatever reason, and I don't know what the reason is, but losing his job, coming out to an unstable family, has led him thinking, well, I'd still like to be in the army. Where could I be in the army? Where could I do a similar job to the one I've just been doing? He's put 2 and 2 together. He's come up with 4, and he's gone out to the Ukraine to join this legion of international fighters.
Now, that's part of the Ukrainian army made up of foreigners. Now, he said he travelled to Poland to get himself to Ukraine. Now, tonight we've had a report from a news agency.
It's all too easy to get yourself out there and do this, all right? If you want to go, you've only got to look online nowadays and you'll find out exactly where people are, exactly how to do it. And international travel isn't exactly difficult nowadays, is it? So you can be on a plane, you can be on a train, you can be over there in 10 minutes doing exactly what he did. Now, to make that decision for him hasn't been a difficult one. It's all gone completely wrong for him over here. So I think in some ways he was sort of like, he's forced himself into a little bit of a corner. He wanted to do the right thing and he's gone over there to try and sort of like resurrect his whole life, as it were.
TASS, the Russian news agency, saying what it calls a British mercenary has been captured in the Kursk region. Now that's part of...
See, the Russians aren't going to look at him in the same way as I'm going to look at him. They're just going to see a murderous mercenary who's come over there to fight against their troops. Because with all this stuff, you've got to look at both sides of the coin. And that, unfortunately, is how they're going to see him. So they're not going to cut him a lot of quarter when it comes to sort of like things like, you know, looking after him, looking after his welfare, thinking about his family and all that sort of stuff. They don't care, all right? They don't care. What they will try and do, I would imagine, at some stage is use him either as a pawn or as an example.
Southern Russia. Now, there has been fierce fighting there after there was a surprise incursion into that region by Ukrainian forces back in August. Now, the Foreign Office have told us tonight that they are supporting the family of a British man following reports that he has been captured.
Right, the Foreign Office then are saying they're supporting the family, which is good. All right, they'll support them to a point. All right, there's not that much they can do, to be honest, but at least they have said that they are trying to support the family.
The website of the Foreign Office warns against travel to Ukraine for fighting, saying people have been captured in the past, and when that happens, it can...
Right, the website will warn against travel to the Ukraine, and rightly so. Now, I'd be hypocritical because I've done this sort of thing myself, all right? I've been to Ukraine myself, in fact, so I'd be hypocritical to say don't go, all right? Because I think that's a decision that an individual has to make for himself, herself, whoever it is that wants to go. What I will say with this is if you are going to go, and I don't know what his skill sets were, I don't know exactly what he was capable of. He'll be the only one ultimately that knows that. What I will say, whenever I've tried to do something in one of these areas, I've tried to keep it within the boundaries of what I know how to do. And if I asked to do something that I don't know how to do, I wouldn't do it. All right? So if there was something I felt was too much for me, I would turn the job down. And I have turned jobs down on a number of occasions. No matter what the money is, I don't care, all right? No matter what the reward is, I don't care. If I don't think I can physically do the job, I won't do it, all right? Now, I'm not saying he could or couldn't do what he was set out to do because I don't know exactly what it was he was trying to do. That's just my feeling on anyone who wants to travel to one of these areas.
Difficult for the Foreign Office to offer support. So a worrying situation, but it could be even more complicated but because this apparent capture happened.
Of course it's difficult for the Foreign Office to offer support because these two countries are at war. It's very difficult to strike up relationships with these sorts of people because, you know, if you've gone over there and you're being described as somebody who's doing something adverse towards that nation, then, you know, in all sort of like fairness, why should they help? Do you know what I mean? If you looked at it from our point of view, if somebody came over here to fight against our country, why would we want to help anybody trying to help them? It's a very, very difficult one.
On Russian soil rather than in Ukraine.
I was British Army before 2019 to 2023.
Right. So we've had a look at what's happened. We've had a look at what the authorities are trying or not trying to do. We haven't really mentioned what the Russians are going to do because we don't know what their hand is yet, what their take is, where he is, who's got him, and how they might plan to use him. Like I said, there's two main things they could do. He could be used as a pawn in negotiations. He could be used as an example. Now, that's the worst case because if they use him as an example, you know, at the very best, he's going to get a lot of time in prison. At the worst, well, we don't even want to go down that road right now and think about it. But, you know, the options are on the table, aren't they? So let's have a look at what he's actually said about himself, this guy.
22 Signal Regiment. Just private. I was a signal man. So 1 Signal Brigade, 22 Signal Regiment, 252 Squadron.
He's not lying there, is he? He's obviously been cleaned up because we're going to have a look at some footage later where he's actually sort of like after the sort of like scene and probably the first stage up the command. He's had his roll around in the field. He's been dragged out. This is quite a way down the line. This is like he's been cleaned up. He's in fairly clean fatigues. He looks clean. He looks fed. He's in a room that isn't battered. He's almost like a studio. This is properly set up. This is down the line a bit. Anyway, let's continue with what he's saying.
So when I left, got fired from my job, I applied on the International Legion webpage. I had just lost everything. I just lost my job. My dad was away in prison. I see it on the TV.
So there you go. He lost everything. And I don't see any lies being told here. This isn't a cover story. This is him realising I need to tell these people everything, and hopefully they might show him a little bit of leniency.
It's a stupid idea. Flew to Krakow, Poland from London.
It cuts a really sad story, if I'm honest.
Luton, bus from there to Medica in Poland on the Ukraine border.
There you go. So from watching on the television to actually turning up on the border, easy. But I think he genuinely regrets doing that. I genuinely believe what he's saying there. I really do.
And as you say, he gives his name as James Scott Rees Anderson. Now, he says he formerly served in the British Army and that he signed up to fight in Ukraine's International Legion. He appears to have his hands tied behind his back in this footage, and at one point he actually appears with tape over his eyes. We're unable to independently verify it, so there's lots of questions around it, like where it was filmed, when it was filmed, who by, but it's being reported here by...
Right, this is other footage now. This is some other footage that's been taken, and I would suggest that this was earlier on, before that last lot that we've just seen.
Jimmy, O'Reilly, Britannia, Oxford, Nomads.
Right, here we go. So, just look at this now, straight away. He doesn't look as clean cut there. He's obviously just been captured. He's still got the tape on his hands there. So this is fairly early in the capture. The background then, that's an old ragged sofa. That's either in someone's sort of like laying up position, or that's an enemy position somewhere. It looks like it's some old house or something. That's on the battlefield. That's fairly close to the front line. He's been obviously taken off the front line, and this is like probably one of the first holding areas he went to, and fairly close to the time that he was actually captured. And you can hear when you hear him talk now, he's not putting on the polished voice like he did in the last one. He's almost trying to give it a bit of Russian twang in his voice. Listen to this.
British Army. I learn for 1 year, and I stay for 4 years. So still array. I was helping.
He's giving it that broken English thing as if they're going to understand him with the talk, which is, I do it sometimes actually. I sort of like put on a half accent, they're not going to understand him any more or any less. In fact, I'm struggling to understand what he's actually going on about here. But this is definitely close to when he was taken. A lot closer to when that first piece of footage that we looked at was taken.
On the polygon, just simple skills. How to shoot, how to walk, patrol.
Again there, you can see he's on some sort of sofa in someone's house. But this is like this looks like he's on the battlefield or pretty close to the front line. That's somewhere that they've occupied. That's not like a proper camp, is it even?
Maybe
And look at his hands. Look at his fatigues are minging. They're dirty. He's got his gloves on. He's literally just been ripped off the battlefield here, I'm telling you, or not far from being ripped off the battlefield.
It's out 30 minutes.
I would say as well, he still looks fairly shocked to be there. He's not the same person that was talking in that first video.
Outside cavalry. They keep getting prisoners come in, so it gets bigger and bigger and bigger all the time. Maybe.
And he's absolutely singing like a canary and all. So he's telling them absolutely everything he's been doing. So you can see there, and this is what I say about the skill set thing a little bit. He's had no training whatsoever, from what I can see, of how to conduct himself after capture. This is a complete shock to him. He does not want to be there. He's not thought about the possibility of ever being there. And he's absolutely just giving them the whole thing.
400 or 500. Every 3 weeks, new people come to the training place where I was. 30 people every 3 weeks. I think we have Cossacks and MRAPs, but no tanks.
So he's telling them dispositions, he's telling them who's coming, he's telling them what's coming. This is no cover story coming out of him now. All right, this is not something that he's made up. This is not something that he's thought, right, if I get captured, I'm going to tell them that. Or whatever it is he's decided would be his drill. He has not thought about being captured whatsoever. He has not been trained to deal with that eventuality, and now he's actually living a nightmare, which is horrible.
No infantry fighting vehicle. Commander, take my shit and tell me to come. Take passport, everything, my telephone, and say, Machina, Davai, I don't want to be here.
No, he doesn't want to be there. And to be fair, we don't want him there either. He's not in a very good position. Right. Where do we summarise this one? Let me think. Right, so we've got a young lad who, for whatever reason, has joined the British Army, and things have gone wrong for him after his 4-year point. He's not gone up the ranks. He's not reached any dizzy heights. He's not any super trooper or anything like that. Just a private soldier from the Signals Regiment whose career, for whatever reason, and he doesn't say, has ended abruptly and he's been sacked. At that point, he's left the British Army with nothing. And believe me, when I left, it was a similar sort of like thing, although I did a lot longer. I left unexpectedly. It hits you like a bolt in the chest. And you're struggling, and he's looking for stuff to do. Coupled with the fact that obviously there was a bit of torment out there with his personal life, with his old man being in prison and all that sort of stuff. Watching what was going on the television, realising there was foreign fighters out there, craving that sort of like camaraderie, that esprit de corps, all that sort of stuff, he's made the decision, I'm going over there and I'm going to fight. And I'm trying to resurrect what I've had here. It's never going to be the same. It isn't going to be the same. But at least I'm going to be in an organised group, an army of as such, and I'm going to be doing a job which he obviously deems as worthwhile doing, or he wouldn't have gone. And that's what he thought he was getting himself into. I would suggest that his skill sets didn't match possibly what they expected of him when he got there. He has received some training, as he alluded to. He was going to do a year's training, then he was going to deploy for 4 years, and that would have been his 5 years done. I think the realities of war over there, it is proper war fighting. They're not messing around. They're not playing at it. They are trench to trench, clearing house to house, street to street, fighting hand to hand sometimes. It's a harsh reality. He's got himself mixed up in it all. He's been taken. To be fair, he's probably at this stage lucky to be alive. I just hope that the Russians won't do anything too harsh. He'll probably get punished in some way, shape or form. But ultimately, I hope they let him go and he'll be brought back here at some stage of the campaign. That's what I hope will happen. I don't even want to think what else could happen to him, and I don't want to go down that road. I'm hoping the Russian authorities will say, right, yeah, prisoner of war, when this is all done, you're going home. Do you know what I mean? And by the laws of the Geneva Convention, that should be how it goes. Let's hope it does go that way. Very unfortunate, very sad story as far as I'm concerned. If you have got a story that you'd like me to have a look at, if you'd like me to tell you the tactical truth on anything that's out there at the moment, let us know. Send it in. You know where, the link's below.